Well, thanks for the introduction. Very good to see you all. Thanks for turning out on a swelteringly hot day. I'm very glad to be back with the CSJ again. The CSJ has done hugely important work influencing policy making in a whole variety of different social fields over the last few years, of which this is one. And it is, to my mind, one of the most important social challenges this country faces. And as I always say in speeches to people in my own party, whether you're the hardest hardliner on crime, whether you are the woolliest liberal on crime, every single one of us has a vested interest in reducing reoffending. It is the right thing to do, both for the victims of crime, but also for those who find themselves in our prisons and in our criminal justice system, because if we don't stop them from doing it again, then actually their lives will be wrecked too. So this is a really important mission for all of us. Now, what I set out for the last time I was here was the plan that we have to start to really intensify the work we do on rehabilitating offenders and to get a grip on those stubbornly high reoffending rates. I talked about those figures, that half the people who leave our prisons will reoffend within a few months of leaving, and why that cannot be allowed to continue. And that's really what we've been doing in the 9 months or so since I made that speech, to really put together the different jigsaw puzzle pieces we are going to need to step up our battle against the reoffending challenge. And what I want to do today is talk to you a bit about the work we've been doing, and I want to talk to you about the role we think that the voluntary and community sector has to play in our plans. And I think it's a tremendously exciting time for all of the voluntary sector, a huge opportunity for everyone in the voluntary sector who works with offenders, a real opportunity to step up to the plate in turning around the lives of those offenders. Because I'm very clear that there is a level of expertise to be found in the voluntary sector that cannot be found elsewhere. And it is an extremely important part of what we are trying to achieve. Now, back in January, we launched the first part of our plans, a consultation on the detail of our proposals. We received almost 600 responses, more from organisations in the voluntary and community sector than from anywhere else. And what came across very clearly is just what a wide range of organisations are already working with offenders, and how passionate the people in those organisations are about trying to deal with this challenge. In May, we published our response to that consultation, but more particularly our strategy for reform. I hope everyone here has a chance to read it. And what we did is we described how we would drive down reoffending. Different steps. We need to start by introducing a minimum 12-month supervision and rehabilitation process for all offenders on release from prison, including for the first time those released from short prison sentences. The biggest gap, the most glaring gap in our system, is that people who go to jail for less than 12 months walk out the gate with £46 in their pockets, and that's it. No supervision except in a few isolated areas, no support, and lo and behold, most of them end up reoffending again. It's not rocket science. That is a huge gap in our system. We are now taking serious steps to sort that out. We have now passed the Offender Rehabilitation Bill through the House of Lords. That will give us the power to impose not only licence conditions, typical of any other sentence, on those short certain sentence offenders, but it gives us the power to set a minimum 12-month supervision period, rehabilitation period, for everyone who comes out of our prisons. That is a really important step towards tackling the problem. The second thing we've done, which I think is actually probably a less visible but actually immensely important part of what we're trying to do, is we're reorganising the prison system. We're creating a national network of resettlement prisons. So for the first time, there is going to be a clear geographic link between the place you are detained for the last few months of your sentence and the place you're going to be released into. You know, we have, if you look at London, we have something like 100 prisons around the country releasing offenders back into London. And of course, your ability to provide a proper through-the-gate service there is really limited. By building, reshaping the prison system so that 70-odd of our prisons are designated as resettlement prisons, they're the place in which short sentence offenders are kept. They're the place in which people who've been there for longer sentences will come back for the last few months of their sentence. We can deliver that joined-up support both before they leave, through the gate, and beyond. We're creating a new national public probation service. tasked with protecting the public from the most dangerous offenders. I do not think it is possible. The public would not expect us to do anything else except to retain within the public sector supervision of the most serious parts of our system, the management of serious risk of harm, the supervision of the most serious offenders. That will be the core of the task that the new National Service does. It is what people would expect. But then alongside that, crucially, we will be opening up the market for rehabilitation services to a much broader range of providers, so that we embrace the best of the voluntary and community sectors and the private sectors, as well as the public sector. I want the strengths of all three. Each has something to bring to this table. And what we'll do is we'll give these new providers the flexibility to use their expertise to do what works, to reduce reoffending, and our contracts will see them only paid in full if they are successful in reducing reoffending, making taxpayers' money work harder. And I'll say a bit more about the payment by results system in a moment. But this is really what I want to focus on today. How we capture the skills of the specialist organisations in the voluntary sector as part of a diverse mix of providers. Why is it important? Because you guys have got the roots in the community, work with many of these offenders already, and have some of the people whose skills I want to capture. I think that the former offenders gone straight are some of the best people out there to persuade a young, newer offender that it's time to turn their lives around. And I want that whole range of organisations working to get to grips with offenders' life management problems. And you've got to bear in mind, most of the people in our jails come from the most difficult of backgrounds. Nearly a quarter were in care as children, which I always find a shocking statistic. These are people who didn't have the guidance as they grew up to help prepare for adult life. Often they don't have the knowledge about how to get their lives back together again. And what I'm looking to our new generation of providers to do is to provide that degree of nurturing and support and mentoring to help them do that. Now, I know that there are organisations out there that can do that work and are doing that work to some degree already. The Third Sector Research Council identified in 2011 over 1,700 third sector organisations who count offenders and their families as one of the main groups they work with. It's an amazing range of organisations and individuals who are passionate, feel as strongly as I do, about the need to turn around the lives of offenders. I've seen some of that work at first hand in the last few months. In March this year, I visited Blue Sky in Chatham to see some of the terrific work they're doing to support veterans released from custody. On Friday in Norwich, I saw a project in development, building a cafe next to the prison that will provide work for offenders and former offenders, as well as a focal point for the community. And of course, we have the great Clinks projects around the country, the restaurants that we have in Cardiff and in Surrey, and I hope that charity will go from strength to strength. A whole range of different ways in which the voluntary sector is making a difference. And we're already trying out, we're already piloting innovating approaches to reducing reoffending with voluntary and community sector organisations at their heart. The payment by results pilot at Peterborough Prison is a really first-rate example of what can be done. It's run by Social Finance with support from a number of voluntary organisations like St Giles Trust, Ormiston Children and Families Trust, YMCA and SOVA. It's helped prisoners who would previously have had no support. It provides them with help as they prepare for release and then to access the services they need, including housing, employment, financial services, substance abuse services once they're out of prison. It's that kind of approach. The Peterborough approach is the nearest we have today to what I want to see rolled out across the country. Now, we've recently published interim figures from the Peterborough pilot, which I have to say are very encouraging. They show a sizable fall in reconvictions from 41.6% between September 2008 and March 2010, down to 39.2% between September 2010 and March 2012. Now, that may not sound a very big drop, but actually set alongside what's been a significant increase in the same period in reoffending rates. They're making a visible and tangible difference, something like 5% in their first measurement period, which I'm very pleased with, and is a real signpost to what can be achieved. Now, there is no question of us only paying lip service to the voluntary and community sector as we transform rehabilitation. I'm determined to ensure these organisations are right at the heart of our approach, delivering it on the ground, working at every level, and forming genuine partnerships with other providers. And I genuinely mean that. And a lot of people talk about the work programme. And actually, it is worth remembering that the work programme has got a bigger voluntary sector participation in it than any previous employment programme. But this is not the work programme Mark II. It's going to be different. The structure, the nature of it is different because there are some core obligations that providers have to deliver. They have to fulfil the orders of the court. They have to deliver what the judges or the magistrates say. Only then can they put effort into rehabilitating and delivering that outcome that we're all looking for. So the contract structures will be different. It's also the case, and I know I keep on saying this, it is not my objective just to give these contracts to a small group of big companies. I genuinely want to see a more diverse supplier base. I want to see new participants, but you can't just come in having got no experience. And the experience lies to a substantial degree in the voluntary sector. So I'm not interested in big company A turning up stage left with no previous experience in doing this and saying, hey, give me a contract, I'll bid a low price. I need, and I expect to see the quality of service at the heart of this. And it is worth saying, this is not a contract that's simply about saving money. It's not a contract that's simply about price. What I'm looking for, within the budgets that I've got, is the best possible package to deliver me reduced reoffending. Because that's what saves me money down the track if fewer people are coming into our prisons, fewer people coming into our criminal justice system. So I'm just not interested in a big company coming along saying I can do this for half the price. What I want is a smart package of rehabilitation. And I'm not going to give contracts to people who do not deliver a smart package to rehabilitate offenders. And that is why actually the voluntary sector is so important, because you guys are where the experience lies. The private sector brings sharp management skills to help bring down costs so I can afford to pay for the people under 12 months who get no support at the moment. So I want efficiency. I want a system that is not bureaucratic. But I do not want the private sector to just simply come and own all of this. They haven't got the expertise to do it. They're not going to be able to do it without people who've been there, have got some experience already. So do not believe that I'm just going to hand over these contracts to a big company that turns up stage left with no previous experience. I want their skills in bringing down cost. I do not want so I can reinvest. I want their skills in managing a system efficiently, but I need to have the mentoring skills that I think are substantially found in the voluntary sector. And that's why what all of you will be doing, I hope, in this programme, what all of you can be bringing to the table is so important. Let me say a bit about the range of things that we're doing to make it possible for the voluntary sector to be at that table. Consultation responses told us that contracting services across 16 areas did not provide enough opportunities for medium and small organisations to participate. So we increased the number of areas to 21 to maximise the range of providers which can be involved in delivery. That's about the most sensible balance we can achieve between needing to realign the prison system so there are resettlement prisons for each area and delivering contracts that are the right balance between critical mass of offenders looked after and at the same time trying to give smaller organisations the opportunity to come in and participate in what we're doing. We heard that forming part of supply chains with larger providers can be daunting for the smallest organisations, particularly when money is at risk. So we've been clear from the start that we do not want a conventional sub and prime model, but we want to see genuine partnerships. And I know there are genuine partnerships already emerging between voluntary sector and private sector in a way that can help make a difference. We'll be holding, and have already started holding, a series of events to allow providers to start forming those vital partnerships. We're going to be doing everything we can to promote those partnerships, to create opportunities for them to be forged. We're going to have 2 industry standard contracts, one for lead organisations, one for supply chain partners, to ensure the sustainable delivery of our market stewardship principles. The consultation, we had a lot of requests for statistical information. And so we've set up the Justice Data Lab to allow all organisations working with offenders to access central reoffending data so they can understand the impact that their work has had and to focus on what works. The highest demand is expected to come from voluntary and community organisations. Quite a few have said to me, we need to know how well we've done in the past. We don't have the data. We're there to help with that. And we are putting money behind all of this. In December, we organised a grant of £150,000 to 3SC to develop a capacity building action plan, setting out specific recommendations to be delivered to support the sector. We've now awarded a further £150,000 to Akivo, working in partnership with the NCVO and Candor collaborations to deliver a series of workshops throughout England aimed at supporting charity and voluntary organisations who want to better measure their unit costs and demonstrate the impact of their work. And working with the Cabinet Office, we're providing practical support in many areas. We're developing a financial modelling tool to enable voluntary community and social enterprises to assess proposals from potential partners. We're providing a central legal function to check VCSE organisations' contractual terms and conditions with other providers. And we're working to create a database of VCSEs and mutuals involved in the rehabilitation of offenders to help organisations from partnerships and consortia to reduce the pressure of preparing multiple expressions of interest. These are some of the lessons that we've learned, particularly that last point that I've certainly brought with me from the setting up of the work programme. So to voluntary and community sector organisations who want to get on board with these exciting plans to turn around the lives of more and more offenders, I say please work to get ready now. Get on the Transforming Rehabilitation website, register with our procurement team. There's plenty of information about our plans there already, and the available documentation will be growing in the months ahead. Make the most of the support I've talked about. Get ready to demonstrate what your organisations can do, setting out your track record, your proposals for the future in a way that can easily be understood, compared and scrutinised. And think about what partnerships you can form to deliver a transformation in rehabilitation on the ground, combining the best of public sector, private sector and voluntary sector, whether in partnerships, consortia or as individual organisations. So what next? We've already published a notice formalising the department's engagement with the market on the rehabilitation programme. In the autumn, we're going to begin the formal procurement process. The whole system will be up and running by 2015 and we'll be starting to transform the rehabilitation of offenders. There's one other point quickly I'd like to make before I finish. Going back again to the issue of big companies. I think that the Ministry of Justice needs a broader supplier base. I want to see a greater range of organisations working with us on a whole range of different contracting areas in the future. We will be holding, after the summer, a trade fair at the MOJ for a whole range of organisations to come out and find out what we do, how we do it, how we contract, what the systems are, what things are going to be coming up in the future, because I want to see a much wider range of organisations working with us. We cannot be too dependent on a small range of suppliers. And that is why I say to you, do not believe that these contracts are simply going to be handed to a tiny number of traditional suppliers. I want lots of organisations to demonstrate what they can do for us. I want groups of organisations coming together, maybe to form long-term partnerships, can deliver a whole range of services for us. But this contracting process is a genuinely open one, where we will do everything we can to help support and encourage participation and bidding from employee groups, from voluntary sector partnerships, from private voluntary sector partnerships, and whatever else comes forward. But I do want to see a broader range of suppliers working for the MOJ in future. This is not a closed book contract. It is one where we are genuinely looking for new expertise, and where it is genuinely the case that I do not want to simply give these contracts to the lowest bidder. That's not what this is about. These contracts are about reducing reoffending. And that's all I'm interested in. Of course, I've got a budget I have to work within, but I'm not interested in shaving that extra 10% off the price and ending up compromising on what we can do in reducing reoffending. Because we do that, actually we remove the whole point of what we're trying to achieve, which is 3 or 4 or 5 years down the track, as these reforms are really bedded in, we are seeing a steady decline in the number of people reoffending. We're seeing pressure being eased, pressure on the prison system being eased. We are seeing fewer people coming into our criminal justice system, and we are seeing fewer victims of crime. And that, ladies and gentlemen, fundamentally is what this is all about. Thank you.